The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, episode 259. We are just a couple of days away until Christmas. Ryan, are you excited about Christmas?
I mean, who isn't? Who isn't excited for the holidays? Who isn't excited to chill out, do nothing, drink a lot of beers, eat a lot of food, watch a lot of football, take a break from the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit?
A few days off, that's right.
A few days off, and I'm all for it. I'm ready to go.
When you sit down and make your Christmas list, is it just a bunch of Golf Town gift cards?
Honestly,
that you're asking for?
Not this year. Not this year. Usually that's on the list, but I think this year I'm looking to find more. I'm more in the tech space, so I want a lot of Amazon cards. I need to upgrade some cameras and lights and gear. So that's kind of where my wheelhouse is this year.
Well, you had a pretty good sort of kickoff to your holiday season. You went down to Buffalo and joined the rest of the full building of Leaf fans that were in the building. Is it called the KeyBank Center now?
The KeyBank Center.
It was called the HSBC Arena forever. Now it's called the KeyBank Center. Talk a little bit about your experience. That was the first time ever seeing the Leafs on the road. You got to see them in their white unis.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the experience.
I fucking loved it. I thought it was one of the best experiences I've had as a Leaf fan, to be honest with you. It's my first away game. It's the first time going down there. You always see it on TV that it's packed in there, but as soon as I'm with a group of people, we walk into a bar and we're going to eat some wings before the game. Can't get a seat because you look around and every single person in this bar is wearing a Leaf jersey. And you're like, holy shit. And especially with the Sabres being so bad, I'm sure a lot of fans stayed home that night. And then you get into the arena. I had pretty good seats, and it feels like you're right on top of the ice. And there was just an electricity, a buzz. Like even when things weren't going on and the play was just happening, there was just this undertone of electricity in that building. And it was just, I had the best time. It was awesome. Obviously with a Leaf win and a pretty exciting game, that helped, but I'm willing to drive down there every single time they play now because it was a fucking great experience. Beers were not cheaper. The beers were not cheaper. I will say that.
Okay.
But
well,
the general buzz in that arena was just, it just felt different.
I think it comes back to what we talk about where those are the quote real fans in the building. Like it's an affordable ticket. So people are willing to make the drive to see the team because tickets are so much more affordable. And that's why I think you get, like you and I have talked a lot over the years about Scotiabank Arena and how stuffy and how corporate it is, especially during the regular season. So I think getting into like, it's a very easy drive. Tickets are affordable. Get in the building, see the team. It's a totally different group of fans in there than what's in Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, I hate Scotiabank Arena. Like I actually, there's a lot of things that I really dislike about it, and it's mostly for the regular season. Because usually when the playoffs come around, the building gets amped up a little bit more. But yeah, I just it was nice to be in a new group of fans, and just it was every time they scored, the place just went nuts, and it's just the word electricity just comes to mind. It was just the undertone of energy that you just don't get during a regular season game at Scotiabank Arena.
I know we touched on this a little bit last episode, but I just need to reiterate. The Buffalo Sabres are... It's jarring to see. They are terrible. And you got to love the lead up with Lindy Ruff talking about taking the crowd out of the game in their home building.
Yeah,
because they just know.
We got there a little late, and before I even got to my seat, McMann already scored. It was like, okay, like that mission was not accomplished there, Lindy.
Well, another thing that you saw up close and personal is Auston Matthews re-aggravating his injury. And we don't know if it was when he got leveled or there was another video clip going around of him by the net and him taking a cross check in the back. But it was pretty early Saturday morning where Berube came out and said he's not playing tonight. He re-aggravated his injury. And there's been a lot of talk about like maybe he came back too early, maybe whatever. Just listen, we obviously don't know. I'm wondering now, is it a back issue? Like, is it like they've described it as upper body, right?
Yeah.
Is it upper body or is it lower body? I can't even remember anymore. It was so long ago.
Body. I think it has to be an upper body injury. It's
like, so
it's
is
always
it a
been
back
upper body
thing?
with him.
Yeah. Is he having like back problems? Like I have no idea. Like the wrist has always been something that we've speculated about. He's had nagging wrist problems, but listen, it's just kind of at the point with him. Shut him down. Shut him down. Like pull a fucking Kucherov. Shut him down. Leave him out. Wait till after the deadline. No salary cap. Reactivate him again. If the Lightning can do it, why can't we fucking do it? Like, just shut him down. Don't rush him back. It's over. Like, he's not winning the Rocket this year. He's not going to have a record-setting season goal-wise. This is probably going to be, in terms of point totals, his lowest ever in his career, which is, like, understandable because he's hurt. So who cares about that? All that matters is this guy's in your lineup come playoff time. So shut him down. Just shut him down.
That's a bold statement. To just shut him down for the season. I don't think
I think they're good enough and have played well enough without him that shut him down.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty bold statement. I don't know if that's the best. I mean, the tough part about doing that is they're just right there for the division. Like they're right neck and neck, and I think shutting him down ultimately would kind of be not to their benefit in terms of winning a division, but at the same time, if this guy is going to get this guy's going to re-aggravate his injury every time there's physical contact in front of the net or along the boards, then what choice do you have but to really make sure he gets healthy? Whatever, if that's shutting him down or being out for a month or 2 months or whatever he needs. At the end of the day, every season's all about what happens in April. So, I mean, winning the division is very important, but if you look right now, if they won the division, they'd be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. So they'd be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. So yeah, I think you have to do what you have to do to make sure this guy can play a physical playoff style hockey and be healthy. So whatever you have to do, I think they should do.
Well, you and I have been talking about it. Like he was starting to heat up from the standpoint of he was starting to score a few goals, but you watch the guy skate. He does not look like the same player and hasn't since he came back. It's not like he came back from his injury and was operating at 100% and looked like vintage Auston Matthews. Like how many times in the defensive zone is he behind the play? Is he he just looks like he's laboring. That's the best way to sum it up. So it's like at this point, does it really matter? Like they've looked so good without him. Yes, they lost Saturday night to the Islanders, but like it's just do what you got to do. Stop fucking around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need him healthy for when it matters most. So I think you just have to do what you have to do to make sure that happens.
When we were on last, we did not know the extent of the Anthony Stolarz injury, and we speculated that it would be maybe he would be like a week or two or whatever, and then we find out that it's a 4 to 6 week injury with a pebble in his knee. He's had knee issues throughout his career. First and foremost, I just want to say I feel absolutely awful for this guy. Like, this guy was having a Vezina caliber season and had planted his flag as the number one goaltender with this team. And this is a terrible blow. I feel so bad for him. And you and I talked about it in last episode. You worry about his ability to come back and kind of hit the ground running and pick up where he left off, because you've seen this with goalies so many times. But before we talk about their goaltending going forward, I just wanted to just touch on Stolarz himself and be like, I feel awful for this guy. I feel awful for him.
A pebble in your knee. I'm just trying to hear that. I'm like, what is that like? What is it like having a pebble in your knee? I don't even know that existed. I didn't even know that was an injury.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like a piece of bone or something that they need to get cleaned out of there. Because you saw him stand up and he was kind of shaking his knee out, right? And like he probably is really sensitive and very aware of that part of his body because he's had so many injury issues there. But yeah, well, I don't think pebble is the medical term for it. That's what Brad Treliving used. So that's what we're gonna go with. He said when you look at the X-rays, it looks like a tiny pebble in his knee.
Yeah, it sounds extremely painful to me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's what we've said the past couple episodes. It's just you feel bad that he was just on such a roll and he was looking like just an absolute superstar. And now he can go away, get healthy, come back. But is he going to be the same guy as he was before? But judging what I've seen from goaltenders in the past who've had a long injury and come back, they usually don't come back and look the same as they did before. Joe Woll did the exact same thing last year. He was unreal, got hurt, came back, was brutal in the regular season, but then got them back in the series, and then we ultimately know what happened in Game 7. So,
right,
I think expecting him to come back and kind of be at the same level that he was before is not realistic. But again, maybe same thing as Auston Matthews. You let this guy do what he has to do to get 100% healthy. He's going to have to come back and get some games in before the season's over. That's for sure. But you definitely want Joe Woll and Anthony Stolarz as healthy options going into Game 1 in April. Like that is absolutely priority number one at this point.
I want to talk about Joe Woll in a second, but first, it appears as though the plan is to have Matt Murray be the guy who backs up Joe Woll. Like that's the guy they want. I think they want to give him as much of a shot as they can, given the NHL pedigree that he has. You saw him up close on Friday night in Buffalo. Your thoughts on Matt Murray being the choice? And in fairness, like we saw Hildaby last Sunday against Buffalo, he looked like the lights were still a little too bright for him. So I think it would make sense that they would look at Murray and go, "You've got the NHL pedigree. Let's give you a try."
Yeah, I think Hildaby is kind of in the same category as Fraser Minton, because there is a need for having like a good third option in the net. There's a need to have a good third line center. But even though this is such an important year and they have to win, you still have to look at dudes who aren't fully developed, who still need some more seasoning, who still need as much playing time as possible. And I never thought I would see Matt Murray play a game in the NHL ever again. Ever again. There was no way I thought this guy was ever going to suit up for any team in this league ever again. And seeing him in the net, it was quite shocking. He looks huge in the net in person. But, I mean, a couple of those goals, it just looked like he just wasn't square to the shooter, and he would just kind of drift it out to his side a little bit and kind of left a lot of the net wide open. But overall, I thought he looked decent. I think it makes sense to have a guy who's played in the NHL for a long time, a guy who will always have that pedigree, will always have the ability to say, I've won 2 Stanley Cups in this league. And I think that will continue. And if he comes back and he looks half decent, I think that will make him have an opportunity to be able to play in the NHL for as long as he's healthy. So I think it makes sense that they want him as the second option, because I don't think you want Hill to be kind of just, I don't know. Like, put Hill to be down the AHL. You don't need him up here. I think Matt Murray being the best second guy is the best option for them, because there's no expectations on Matt Murray. Like you want Dennis Hildaby to have the ability to be the best goalie he could possibly be. And by doing that, you put him down the A, you let him get as many saves as possible. That makes total sense. There's no expectations on Murray. If he comes up here, he plays well, then great. If he doesn't, then you do have Dennis Hildaby in your back pocket. If you need to go to that, you will. So I think that makes sense.
Further to your analysis there about Matt Murray, I think, there is a difference between the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League. And I think, he's been playing well for the Marlies, but it's a different ball game, even against the Buffalo Sabres at the NHL level. And so as we kind of go on here, I fully expect Matt Murray to get the start against Winnipeg on Monday afternoon. I fully expect it, just based on Joe Woll and how, like, Joe Woll didn't practice the other day. And it's like, oh my God. And so I want to use this to kind of dovetail into talking about Joe Woll. He looks good. They get the win in Dallas on Wednesday, and he was fucking great in that game.
Yes, I thought he was unbelievable in that game.
Yes, and then Saturday night, he and the rest of the team look like they're completely out of gas against the New York Islanders. Another team coming into Scotiabank Arena that desperately needs a W and played like they desperately needed a W. So I think with Joe Woll, you give him the mulligan of Saturday night because the team in front of him also wasn't very good. I want to put a pin in that and talk about that in a minute. But you see that he's not practicing, and it's concerning because, like, dude, you have to stay healthy here. Like, there's no. I'm sorry. Like, you used up your injury card at the beginning of the season, and Stolarz took the ball. He's using his injury card now, and you got to take the ball, man. And like, when you see he's not practicing, it's really, really concerning because we are literally a gust of wind away from this guy being injured once again, and it's worrisome.
Yeah, having Matt Murray's as your number one goaltender. Yeah, that's not ideal at all. So, I mean, yeah, they don't get much time off during Christmas, but I mean, they did look really out of gas. And if you need to start Matt Murray on Monday, then you need to start Matt Murray on Monday.
And in fairness, we were talking about it last night. They played a lot of hockey in the last 2 weeks. Like, how many fucking back-to-backs?
Yeah, insane amount of hockey. Well, those 3 games in 4 days. Like, it is a lot of hockey. And I don't care if you're playing the Buffalo Sabres or the New York Islanders. It's gonna catch up to you at some point.
So back to the pin I just put in. Joe Woll looks fantastic on Wednesday. You worry about the guy getting hurt also because this dude is needing to make, and it was the same with Stolarz. These guys need to make 3 to 4 $10 a game because for whatever reason, and I've felt this way for a couple weeks now, for whatever reason, I don't know what the hell is going on with the defensive structure of this hockey team. But when you watch the game, they're giving up a lot of high danger opportunities, and the other team is getting a lot of quality looks. And I thought Rick Bowness, who was a breath of fresh air on the panel on Saturday night, did a great job of just showing, like, explaining in layman's terms, like, yes, the forwards are not where they need to be. The defense and the forwards are not disconnected. And you saw Berube losing his mind about that after the Islanders went up 2-0. He's screaming, play the right way at them. And I'm just noticing this a lot more now. And everyone keeps saying, well, they're better defensively. And it's like, yes, they are. And the numbers are better and all that. But I don't love the situation they're putting their goaltenders in with the amount of clean looks they're giving up in the defensive zone. And like I said, this is something that I've been noticing for a few games now. And I think, another great point Rick Bowness made. This time of year, you're playing so many games. Practices are few and far between, so you're doing a lot of video. And I think over the Christmas break, this is something that Berube and the coaching staff need to nail down, is that sort of defensive zone play and the defensive zone coverage, because Joe Woll is going to get hurt trying to go coast to coast, side to side to make another 10 beller because some guy's left wide open with a primo opportunity. And I don't love what I'm seeing defensively.
Another thing I'm noticing too is halfway through the game, you look at the shot total and they're getting outshot by a somewhat significant margin, it seems, every game for the past 2 weeks. And I know shots against and shots for aren't everything, but I think you're right. It's just a lot of high danger opportunities, and you can even see the goals per game or goals against per game have gone down. They were second, now they're seventh. That's kind of the trend you're seeing. Before they were let in two goals a game, 1 goal a game. Now it's crept up to 3. They let in 6 against the Islanders. I know the one was an empty netter, but it is somewhat concerning, and it does show you how when your goaltenders aren't going to give you a A+ effort and a Vezina effort, then look what happened to Joe Woll. Like, there's only so many unbelievable games your goaltender can give you, and eventually if you keep giving these teams clean looks, they're eventually going to bury. And that's exactly what happened against the New York Islanders. It's just too many opportunities, and eventually there was just going to be a night where they were all going to go in. And I am concerned about looking up at the shot total and seeing that they're getting outshot against teams that are pretty good every single night for the past couple of weeks. It is easy to see that their defensive effort isn't exactly as great as it was a month ago.
It just looks scrambly. It doesn't look cohesive. Like there's not a lot of like the breakout is not great. There isn't a lot of good clean pass and you're out of the zone. It's a lot of scrambling around. It's a lot of like diving to block shots, goalie making a big save because the other team is just moving the puck around at will. And like this was not the case earlier in the year. And listen, a lot of hockey. It's like the details start to go away when you get tired. And I just think this is something, and I'm sure they are, but this is something that Berube and the coaching staff need to be all over these guys about, because you're right. It's one thing when you're giving up these opportunities and Anthony Stolarz is in there playing like a Vezina Trophy candidate. And it's another thing when Matt Murray's in there and you give a guy a clean open look and it's in the net. It's just, it has to be cleaned up. Has to be.
Yeah, and it's an unfair expectation, even when Stolarz was in there to, or Wall or Murray, for them to be that good every single night. Like they're not Igor Shesterkin. Like there's still like levels to the goaltending game, and I think it's just not fair to expect a crazy, unbelievable performance from your goaltender every single night. I just don't think it's feasible. Now, if I do look at the positive side of this whole thing, it's yes, their defensive effort has gone down, but maybe it's just like this little stretch of the season when they're playing a lot of hockey, and hopefully they can look at the video, get more practice time, figure it out. But also another positive too is they're also finding a way to win a lot of these games as well, which is to me a great thing for them. It's you always say about the good teams, they know how to win anyway. And usually we're talking about like physicality or like shootouts or whatever. But I do like how they're not giving their absolute best effort, but they are still finding a way to win a lot of these hockey games, and they have a great record.
They're still at the top of the division.
They're in the top of the league. Like they're right in the top of the league. Like if you look at the best teams in the league, they're all kind of have the exact same record they have. So even though they're not playing great, it kind of gives me some positivity to know that they are still finding a way to win these games.
And they've done it, a lot of it, without Auston Matthews, Ryan. Shut the guy down if you have to. Shut him down.
Mm-hmm.
The 24-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win.
And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this new found gold third line. So we touched on this in the last episode, and I want to reiterate, and I just want to preface by saying in no way am I taking anything away from Max Domi or Nick Robertson, because I think they've both played really well, and they've both risen to the occasion and sort of figured out, like, this is what we need to do to contribute. But I just want to once again reiterate how important of a piece Bobby McMann is to this hockey team, because I don't think it's a coincidence that he joins that line and they all of a sudden start producing. This guy, like you and I have talked a lot about depth and the fan base, and everyone who analyzes his team has talked a lot about depth. And I think if you're talking about a depth piece, Bobby McMann is the best depth piece that this team has. He can score you a goal. You can move him up into the top six. He fits right in. I think he's elevated his two line mates on that third line. What are you seeing that third line is doing that has helped them sort of cut through here? Because it was three guys who, it's so funny how literally 2 weeks ago, you and I are sitting here talking about depth and depth scoring, and the three guys we named are the three guys on this line.
Well, actually, no, it was Minton. It was originally going to be Minton, Domi, and McMahon. That was like that was the third line we came up with. But then it was But the ultimate goal was to not have Fraser Minton play a lot of hockey in the NHL and get him back down. So then it was Robertson who snuck in, and I thought he was cooked. I thought he was done. But all three of them look really good together, and they're moving the puck, and they're just capitalizing on opportunities. Because really, if they just weren't capitalizing on opportunities, then we'd probably still be sitting here being like, well, they're just skating around, they're doing this, they're doing that. I just think Bobby McMahon's speed, size, and the ability to have the puck on his stick and an opportunity to fire it in the back of the net, and he just has the ability to do so. And that is just, to me, the biggest difference with that line. And same with Nick Robertson. Like, if you give him a good one-timer across the ice, he's probably going to bury it. And then Max Domi started shooting the puck more and kind of finally got off the schneid. I think if you look at a guy, Bobby McMann is such a good story for anyone playing semi-professional hockey, professional hockey who hasn't made it yet but has the ability. It's like you can get there because the story of this guy's career is incredible, and he is so important to them. Like, even the goal against the Islanders, he gets that puck on his stick and he has the ability to just fire it in the back of the net, and that's what you need from your depth scoring. And when you're talking about depth scoring for this hockey team, you're literally talking about Bobby McMann. He's the guy you're going to have to look to in a big playoff game or a big regular season game, and he's going to have the ability to put the puck in the net. And that was their first regulation loss with Bobby McMahon scoring a goal in their lineup since he's been in the NHL. And that just shows you how important
That's crazy stat, man. That's a crazy stat.
Yeah, there were 16,
and you wonder, they
0-1.
didn't have him against Boston last year. What difference could he have made in that series against the Bruins last year? That, in hindsight, that was a huge injury for them. Like, we talked a lot about, Matthews being out and Nylander being out, but like Bobby McMahon being out was a big, big hole in their lineup last year against the Bruins in that series.
Yeah, he's just such a. Like, you just look at he has the size, he has the speed, and he has the ability to score. Like, it's just like, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I said a couple, like, how many goals can this guy actually score in the NHL? Like, I think he's has the ability to score a lot. Like, he's just, you watch him and it's like, how did this guy get passed over so many times? How did it take him so long, have such a long route to the NHL, and people just look at him and you're looking at the ability. It's like, how did it take him so long? Why was it so hard for him to get that opportunity? Because he's an absolute stud.
Well, I mean, he was in the lineup for a while there too, and he was looking. I've talked a lot on this pod about confidence and how confidence is such, like, if you can acquire some confidence in yourself, you can take your game to the next level. And I think that's what happened with him when he went on that little run last year where he was scoring a lot of goals. And I think it kind of clicked for him, like, I can play here. I belong here, because he was in the lineup for a bit before that, and he was just another guy out there. And then something clicked, and he's been a vital piece. You know, another thing I like about that line too, they're fast. And I think the Leafs as a whole are not a fast hockey team anymore. You saw that against the Devils a couple weeks ago, where it was very clear that they could not keep up with the New Jersey Devils. And as much as I love some of the guys in the top six, Matt Nyes, not that fast of a hockey player. Max Pacioretty, not that fast of a hockey player. John Tavares, not that fast of a hockey player. Injured Auston Matthews, not that fast of a hockey player. So you put Domi and Robertson together. These two guys can really skate. And then you add McMahon's touch, and it's just, they're capitalizing on being out there against the other teams. Like, they're not getting the dangerous defensive matchups on the other team, because that's going to the top two lines. So they go out there, they use their speed, they move the puck around. Nicky Robertson, man, we've talked a lot about how that guy's, his size, he's out there, he's scrumming it up, he's using the body, like,
yeah, he's
again,
doing what he has to do.
You hope these guys can acquire the confidence that Bobby McMahon has, because if this can stick. And it's like anything. At some point, they're going to have a game where they're terrible and Berube's going to mix it up. But if they can stick,
well, they mixed it up last night. Last night, all of a sudden, that line was not a line anymore. They had Pacioretty out there with I'm pretty sure Pacioretty moved down to the third line. They moved McMahon up. So they already did kind of break up the line midway through that game. So obviously, Craig Berube likes to juggle the lines mid-game. So they're not going to be together every single night, but what they've done so far together when they have been playing well is exactly what everyone's been crying about the entire season.
So we're not going to do an episode during the week this week because it's the holiday season. We'll be back next Sunday, so you're only going to get one episode from us this week. So in that, knowing that, I just want to throw a few names at you, and I want you to just talk to me about them when I throw these names at you, okay? I'm going to start with William Nylander.
Best player on the hockey team. I don't think he gets enough credit for the year he's having. We give these guys a lot of shit for the money they make. And we forget that this guy took a pretty team-friendly first contract. And at the time, it didn't seem like that because of the holdout. But looking back at that number and what you got out of him, he took an extremely team-friendly contract. In his contract year, the guy goes balls to the wall, has an amazing season, gets his pay raise. And what has he done? He's in the Rocket Richard race right now. He's 1 goal behind Leon Draisaitl. He scores. It seems like he scores every single night or every other night. This guy is fucking incredible. I think I have nothing bad to say about him at all. There's nothing else I want to see in his game. I think he's playing the best he could possibly play. I don't have one bad thing to say about him. I really don't.
One of my favorite quotes of yours in the history of this podcast is that the team goes as William Nylander goes, and it's so true. Saturday night was the exception where he was cooking and they didn't end up winning that game. More often than not, when he's going. And the thing about Willie is you can tell within his first 2 shifts if he's buzzing or not. And when he's buzzing, I'm right there with you. He is as dangerous as it gets in the National Hockey League when he's playing the way he can play.
Yep.
Mitch Marner.
I think obviously I think Mitch Marner is having a really great season, but I also think he has a great season every season. I think regular season Mitch Marner, there's rarely anything to complain about. Maybe there's a little stretch through every year where he doesn't play his best. At the start of the year, he looked okay, but he's going to be in the high 90s, low 100s. Hopefully, he can break that 100-point mark this year. He's just a really great regular season hockey player. There's not a lot to complain about him, but we will ultimately throw that name at me midway through April and we'll have a different discussion. But ultimately, there's not a lot of negative in Mitch Marner's game. There's really not.
No. It's going to be interesting to watch him now again that Matthews is out. He was the story during the last Matthews injury. He elevated his game and became like a leader when Matthews was out. And he's got to do that again. Like he's got to take... It was interesting how Berube flipped them the other night and changed them, and they kind of clicked. That's really funny how all it takes is something like that to spark these guys.
Yeah.
But he's been excellent. I still think that when he's with Matthews, he defers to him a little too much. And now with Matthews being out, I'm kind of like, okay, he's not there anymore. Stop worrying about him. Get back to doing, because we've seen it that when you're cooking, you can dominate a hockey game. He can take over a hockey game. He can become the most dynamic player on the ice. And if Matthews is going to be hurt, this is clearly an injury that is not going to go away. Like, I think we don't know any details about it, but I think we're smart enough now to deduce, like, this is something he's going to be nursing throughout the season. So Mitch Marner is going to have to elevate and play that way to keep the Leafs where they are. Because we talk about it all the time. Love the third line and their chemistry that they're forming. But at the end of the day, this team is going to go where the big boys are going to take them. And they had such a great run when Matthews was out the first time because Mitch Marner was leading the way. And he needs to do that again.
And they threw up on the broadcast yesterday too. They had 17 straight games. One of the members of the core four has put a puck in the back of the net. So
yeah,
I know the sexy thing to do is to find a way to be down on these guys and negative on these guys. And I totally understand because they just haven't done anything. I totally get it. But if you're just going to look at the regular season, I'm just going to ignore that whole other discussion because we all know this season, the captain, the second best player in the league, quote unquote, has been a non-factor at all. Yep. And I think William Nylander and Auston Matthews, William Nylander and Mitch Marner have done an incredible job upping their game and showing more leadership. And
throw 91 in there too, man.
Yeah, like we'll get to him for sure, but I think you've got to give Marner and Nylander both a lot of credit for how they've played this season. If you're just looking at the regular season, I get the playoff thing, but we're just talking about regular season. They both had a really good year so far.
I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Ready? David Kampf recently returned from injury. They had him playing with Marner the other night, Marner and Nyes. He's an interesting guy because like all indications point to Tree Living looking for another center come the trade deadline. And where does that leave David Kampf? He's kind of in the mix with the depth centers with Connor Dewar. Like, Minton's been here. He's looked pretty good. Like, so what David Kampf is kind of in a position here where it's like, we're going to give you a look and see if you can elevate your game to play in that top 6 when needed, because maybe they like Connor Dewar better as a 4th line center. Maybe they like Fraser Minton better as a 3rd line center. Maybe Tree Living can pull a rabbit out of a hat and get someone to go into that 3C mix. Domi is playing 3C. Like, so this guy, he's kind of in a weird place right now where because injuries, he's still in the lineup because they have a ton of injuries, but you kind of look at him and go like, I don't necessarily see where you fit in a perfect world where everyone's healthy.
Well, William Nylander is such a good hockey player that when he was on the ice with William Nylander in that Islander game, he all of a sudden just looked like he was an offensive threat. Like, that's how good William Nylander is. But David Kampf, the one thing you have to say about David Kampf, he is their number 1 option on the penalty kill. He is, he's always the guy out there on the penalty kill. They love him on the penalty kill. It's from the last regime to this regime. It seems like he's the number 1 guy they like to go to on the PK. For all accounts, everyone always says he's a big, strong dude but at the end of the day, he just doesn't really have any offensive upside, any offensive tools. And he's just a guy. At the end of the day, David Kampf is just a guy, and you're going to have to decide if you like Connor Dewar, who's just a guy, or David Kampf, who's just a guy. It's just going to come down to the preference of the coaching staff. Because ultimately, this guy's not a difference maker. He's really not. I really do like how he kills a lot of penalties. And I think, but I have no expectations on him. I really don't. He's what to expect from David Kampf. It's minimal to me.
I think that's a good point about the PK, because if you're going to compare him to Dewar, I think that might win out and why he might be in the lineup as a 4th line center.
They're on the penalty kill. David Kampf's out there. Like, it's just David Kampf. They love David Kampf on the penalty kill, and that's the one
like clockwork.
It's the one upper hand he has, I guess.
Okay, last one, the most polarizing one on the Talking Buds Leaf show, Morgan Rielly. They've been cycling through D partners with Morgan Rielly, trying to get someone to fit. They had him out there with Connor Timmins. I loved what he did the other night, going in and sticking up for his captain. I've never once questioned the guy Morgan Rielly is. I think he was, before everyone says that I'm a Morgan Rielly hater, because I do criticize his game a lot, he was my choice for captain back when they named Tavares captain. Nothing bad to say about his heart and how much he cares. But just for me personally, it's just not been good enough from a game to game. And they just like, it's, why are we trying to find you a defense partner again? Like, this whole guy's whole fucking career, it's like, who's his partner going to be? And it's like, well, he can't play with, they don't like him with OEL, so we're going to move him with Tanev. We don't like him with Tanev, so we're going to put him with Connor Timmins. That pairing is a fucking disaster. So now we're moving him around again. And it's just, it's weird. It's really weird. And it's the same old thing with Morgan Rielly. I want to see more than what he does on a night to night basis.
I think at this point in his career, you gotta, this is a tough one for me, man. I do love Rielly. I will say, looking at the team stats, him being a -9 is concerning. If you look at their whole lineup, no one's a -9. He's the only guy who's a -9 for a team that's 7th in goals allowed per game. So that definitely,
Ryan, he's not a good defenseman. He's not. He's a weird, like, he's a rover. He's also a fourth forward.
He's not elite enough to call himself, like, he's not Cale Makar. Obviously, no one's Cale Makar, but he
doesn't score enough.
Yeah, he's never put up huge points to be like Erik Karlsson, to be like, I'm going to sacrifice some defensive play to be elite offensively. I think that's always been kind of the issue with him, is he's never been elite offensively to justify some of the defensive play.
Right.
I'm just always going to stick up for him because he's my guy. And I know when it's time for a guy to step up in the right moment, I usually he steps up. Usually in the playoffs, I'm not looking at Morgan Rielly going, this guy sucks. He didn't show up.
But he's another guy, though, with the injuries and with Matthews out. We talked about how Marner, Nylander, and Tavares have all elevated their game, and I don't think Morgan Rielly has. And I think, they do not get any offense from their blue line, and he's the guy that you look to. Like, you look at all the guys on their blue line on a nightly basis, it's like, who are two guys that can score you a goal? Morgan Rielly and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Oliver Ekman-Larsson started the season like he was shot out of a fucking cannon. He slowed down a little bit in the last little while, but I'll give him a mulligan because he started the season so well. But it's just, I don't know. Like, I want more out of Morgan Rielly on a night-to-night basis, and I think just imagine how much more dangerous they'd be. Depth scoring if. When he got the puck on the blue line, he didn't wire it 20 feet over the net or wire it wide or something like that. It's like, just produce a little more, man. Please produce a little more. Because you're right. I will forgive your defensive faults and downfalls if you are dangerous offensively, but you're not dangerous offensively. So I kind of look at you and I go, we need more. Pick a lane. Like, are you going to be better defensively? Then fine. I'm not going to worry about the offense. But if you're going to not be so great in your own end, you need to be better in the other team's end. And right now, neither one is happening.
Yeah. Well, he's never been a goal scorer. He had the 1 year in 2018, 2019, where he did score 20 goals and have his highest point total of 72 points. But that was a long time ago. And he's never had more than 10 goals since then. But he also, his point total is pretty decent for a defenseman. But I just think you look at the .9, that is quite concerning. But I don't know. I love him. The other night, someone had to stick up for their teammate. He stuck up for their teammate. Last year when they got their ass kicked against the Senators, and some guy decided to wire it in front of an empty net. Who was the guy to step in and punch somebody in the face?
It's true.
I just think he is. I'm not standing up here saying he's playing amazing hockey. He's just one of those guys I'm kind of biased towards. And I think when somebody needs to do something that's impactful, he's usually the guy to get in there and do it. And that's why I love him.
I'll never question the guy's heart. I'll sit here and he frustrates me as a hockey player on a shift-to-shift basis, but I'll never question the guy's heart. And he was on display on Friday when he stuck up for his captain.
And then I love what Berube said after the game, too. He was like, you know what? I'm totally down with Morgan going in there, getting that penalty. We'll kill that off. No problem.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I love Craig Berube.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you get your team to buy in to just going and punching a guy in the face when you have to. When your coach goes, I'm totally okay with that.
We need to get out of here because we've now passed the 40-minute mark. But that's why I love Berube so much, is that type of mentality. And he's aware of what this team is. Like when he calls the timeout after they go down 2-0 to the Islanders, what's he saying on the bench? Pay attention to details, play the right way. He knows what's going on here. He knows that this is a group of guys who lose in the playoffs because they don't pay attention to detail, who don't make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed in the game, which is how you win in the playoffs. And he's aware that in previous years with the previous coach, they ignored all that till about February. And he's just started the season being like, this is like, we are going to pay attention to this every night. I don't care if we've got a 3-goal lead. We're still going to pay attention to this. And I've so much, I've drank the Kool-Aid on Craig Berube.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things that I didn't really get into. I was gonna kind of chirp him during that whole Bobby McMann segment because I thought that the way he handled him at the start of the season was kind of a joke. But overall, you do like when your coach comes out and gives you the green light on when somebody hits your best player, you get in there and you do what you have to do, and we'll kill off a penalty if we have to.
We're going to get out of here, buddy. As I mentioned earlier, we will not be doing a weekday episode this week because it is the holiday season. We will be back next Sunday, and the good news is they have another back-to-back next weekend. They have Friday night, the Detroit Red Wings, and then Saturday night, the Washington Capitals. So we'll be back on Sunday morning to discuss that. If you'd like to join us for that, hit that like and subscribe button below. If you're listening to the audio version, like, subscribe, review, all of that. Every little bit helps.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
Happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy the week. We'll see you next Sunday.